the time, your gateway to the world. AFR! American Freedom Radio. Give it to them.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and happy Moon Day. It is November 4, 2013. Hope you all had a beautiful day and a wonderful weekend. It's so good to be back here tonight. Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. We have a very special show in store for you tonight, so if you would like to join us for the text chat, that's over at SoulJourneysRadio.com. Any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call tonight, 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. We are going to discuss 10 things to know before you go with our special guest, Dannion Brinkley. That is the title of his next book he's working on right now. You can find out more about that at Dannion.com. That's DANNION.com. He is an internationally renowned author and speaker in the field of spirituality, self-development, complementary, and alternative medicine. He is the author of 3 international best-selling books, Saved by the Light, At Peace in the Light, and Secrets of the Light, which he co-authored with his wife, Catherine Peters Brinkley. He's pretty much been out there quite a bit because he dies more than anyone else we know. So we're going to talk about that. You can read all about his experiences on his website. That's Dannion.com. But it's so good to have you here tonight, Dannion. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Christie, and thank you for having me.
Yay! Well, thanks for being here. This is kind of a big topic, you know. We all have these life questions. What are we doing here? Why? What's beyond here? Is there anything at all? Some people think it's better. Some people think it's worse. Some people think there's nothing. So I would love for you to just share with us your experience. It was kind of interesting. We were supposed to have you on the show September 17th, which was the anniversary of 2 of your near-death experiences, and I apologize again for having to push that back. We've been going through some changes here, but everything is all good. So, yeah, tell us about that, and more importantly, tell us about your life before your first near-death experience.
Well, I grew up a tough guy. I grew up in South Carolina. Everybody goes to hell from South Carolina. You know, I started hearing it at the age of 5, and because I grew up, bad boy, tough. I rejected so much of what we now believe to be the basic premise of religious principles. I could not figure out how I was guilty of what people were doing in the desert 6,000 years ago. How could I be responsible for that? The whole concept of being born in sin. I thought that was ridiculous when I was a kid, and I think it's even more ridiculous today. But I was just grew up and played sports, and was in the Marine Corps. And I worked for a couple of government agencies, and then on September the 17th at 7:05 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, I was struck by lightning while talking on the telephone.
Oh, wow.
It hit me in the side of the head. It went down my spine, out of the bottom of my feet. It welded the nails, the heels to my shoes, to the nails in the floor. It threw me in the air and suspended me in the air and slammed me back down on the bed. I'd never heard of a near-death experience. Dr. Raymond Moody had not written his landmark book that clarified and gave it the name, the NDE, or the near-death experience.
Yeah.
I was burning and on fire like drinking battery acid. And then the next thing I know, I lift out of my body, and I am completely safe. I'm completely at peace. There is no pain. I went from could not see, burning and on fire, and was paralyzed, to a complete sense of safety and literally a psychological place of one step removed. I was an observer as opposed to a participant.
Yeah.
I watched him work on me, try to resuscitate me. I saw all the paramedics come, load me in an ambulance, take me on the way to the hospital. In the course of being in the ambulance, there was the paramedic, there was my body, and there was me. And when the paramedic said, he's gone, I thought, gone where? You know, and I heard this series of chimes, and then I started down this tunnel, this now infamous tunnel, and I came into a place of light. And I discovered that this was home. This is where we come from. You know, that whole concept that you don't come into creation until birth, that you didn't exist, and some people say at the last breath you breathe there is nothing. Well, those are both two ridiculous statements.
I agree.
You've been around forever.
Yeah.
And by some divine grace, what you chose to learn in your life, as well as what you chose to participate in, was perfectly aligned with the divine's plan, and of the billions of possible beings that could have had that opportunity to enter what was that fetus that would become a human being, it was you that was chosen, perfectly designed, perfectly planned. And I discovered this on the other side, because what happens is there is a certain point where you're infused with knowledge and information, which means in order to achieve the goals, both for you, which you usually just create a bunch of obstacles in your life, but what the divine needs for you to do in the participation of the transference of that divine energy, that sense of power and presence over here, it has to come through you. And you take on certain obstacles to overcome so that it enhances your own spiritual growth and knowledge, as well as achieving the divine's program. So once that all occurred, and I traveled through, in the Bible that says there are 7 heavens, well, I know absolutely that there's at least 4. And as I traveled through these dimensions and became aware of all of the stuff that is far glorious than any religious context ever put it, and I became aware that we are divine spiritual beings, great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings with dignity, direction, and purpose, period. And I had this experience that I never realized that I was glimpsing the future at that time, but it was Dr. Moody who told me 4 years after the first near-death experience. He called me on the phone and he began to tell me what it was that I had written down and what had just come true. So I had a glimpse of what our probable possibilities of the future were, and then I came back, and I found myself in a room covered with a sheet with the lights out, and because it was busy that night in the emergency room, and I discovered that I had been dead for 28 minutes, was completely paralyzed for 6 days, partially paralyzed for 7 months, and it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. But the thing that made Dannion Brinkley any different from anyone else is Dr. Raymond Moody was a medical student. He was a medical student in the hospital that I was taken to. And so the fact that a guy had been struck by lightning and he survived after 28 minutes made it a very natural migration, so that Raymond came to meet me, and we talked. And he was just so perfect of an interviewer. And then I had someone to talk it through, and he had insights. And I began to become comfortable with the fact that I was changing. And the thing that people have to understand is there is what is called the panoramic life review. You see your whole life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama. You watch it from a second person point of view to see the choices that you've made or how close you got to the option that you chose. Then you literally become every person that you've ever encountered. And you feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. So I all of a sudden realized that the person I'd been hitting in the face for so long was just myself. And when I got to see the damage of the grief, pain, suffering, agony that I had inflicted on so many people, I was really doing to me, and it brought that sense of oneness and connectivity. And then there was this system of judgment. And I say it this way, but if God could not come today and God sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? Well, that had the most profound impact on me, because I realized so much about what this life is about, and how it purposefully and how direct that it operates, and how well designed we, along with the creative force, had created this life that we're living. So it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself, and I began to watch what I once thought was real. Governments, religions, institutions, that you're born in sin, you die, you go to hell. You know, you listen to all that stuff, and then you realize that whoever's saying all that made up most of it. And then I looked at the concept of hell, because if anybody was going to hell, it surely would be me. Hell is mentioned 16 times in the Bible, and people don't realize that in order to get the word H-E-L-L, you've probably been through 6 or 8 different translations. Hell in the Old Testament is a combination of 2 words. In the New Testament, since it's Hebrew and Greek, then you're probably talking about maybe 11 different words that just gets reduced down to hell. One word, but they're all phases. Like Greek and Hebrew have numerical equations to each letter has a number to it, and that is just as important as the letter, and the sequencing of those numbers is to the letter, and you begin to realize that what you've been taught is basically nonsense. And once you go through that experience, and what happened with Raymond and I was, I started talking. Raymond and I became fast friends, and we spent 20 years together. And what I realized was that there were so many people who had this experience who couldn't talk about it, whose family told them they were crazy. They talked to their minister. The minister would tell them to talk to their doctor. The doctor would tell them to talk to their minister. They had nowhere to go with it. And so I decided my job was to defend those people's right to be able to talk about something that is so awe-inspiring and so all-comprehensive to the reality we see with our eyes and to the real nature of who we are and what we're doing. And I just began to be the defender of people who could not come forth, because it happened to me. What's so funny, Christie, is I would have been the most cynical, critical jerk when it came down to people telling this experience. But not only was I so non-religious, I didn't really care. It didn't matter to me.
Yeah. And
then I find out that I am the crusader to defend people's rights. But see, today, now 38 years later, I mean, to think that there is no such thing as a near-death experience means that there's something seriously wrong with you. Not wrong with the people who've had the experience.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Dannion. And one of the things I forgot to mention in the intro was you are the co-founder of the Twilight Brigade. You go around to different hospices and such, and I guess, would you describe it like you kind of help people with the transition, or when you mention that you're the voice for people that have had it, or you're kind of sticking up for them, do they get to share some of these experiences with you as well?
Well, throughout the years, I've created a sense of guardianship. Okay, because if you're around me, you can talk about it, and I will protect you, because it happened to me. Okay, and it didn't happen to me just once. It happened to me 13 years later. I had to have open heart surgery, and 7 years after that, I had to have brain surgery. So I've had 1 death and 2 near-death experiences.
Yeah.
They all 3 have the basic concepts within the nature of it. It's just I would travel to different places. As opposed to the first place, I would just go to different places when I got through the panoramic life review. But what is so, I was talking to Eben Alexander, who's the neurosurgeon who just recently had a book called Proof of Heaven. And he said, Dannion, what was it like when you first started? I said, well, it was fine for me. Because I didn't really care whether anybody believed it or not.
Yeah.
Because it happened to me, but...
Yeah, your experience, nobody can deny that.
Yeah, well, patient unconscious, patient not breathing, no EKG is what it says on the admission slip.
Yeah.
Into the emergency room, so that pretty well covers it. So, but the point came where when you get to the point of if God couldn't come today and God sent you in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? Well, I thought about that, and I decided the difference that God and I could make was that I would be at the bedside of those people who were going from this world to the next, who were terrified, who had been filled with religion, that everybody's trying to get them to accept Jesus. And most people in transition, what they need a sense of that their life had meaning. Yeah. And they need a nature and a path to closure. So I became a hospice volunteer. I'm now in my 36th year as a hospice volunteer. I have more than 30,000 hours at the bedside, been with 2,006 people going from this world to the next, and 425 taking their last breath. The Twilight Brigade is probably the largest end-of-life care volunteer program for passing veterans in American history. We're 6,000 people strong in 22 states, and we're all going to be a hospice volunteer sooner or later.
Yeah, definitely. Dannion, I'm so sorry. Hold that right there. We'll talk about all of...
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifilan brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifilan. There's nothing else like Modifilan. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifilan banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
All right, welcome back, and thanks for joining us here tonight. Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Our special guest tonight, Dannion Brinkley, 10 Things to Know Before You Go. Dannion.com is the website, and the TwilightBrigade.com is what he just left off telling us about. That you can find at TheTwilightBrigade.com, and I know the questions are kind of piling up in the text chat, so if you would like to speak to him, just please feel free to give us a call at 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. And for your questions in the text chat, if you could just kind of make it a little bit easier for me. Hard to multitask proficiently at all times. So if you could just put the questions in all caps so they kind of stand out, and I will make sure to grab those for you. But Dannion, you left off telling us about the Twilight Brigade, so please continue.
Well, what happens is that most people aren't prepared. We have this sense of immortality, and it's only come about since the 1860s with the advent of sulfur drugs and antibiotics. Because before, you could have anything happen and your day was done. But now you have sulfur drugs and antibiotics, and we know so much about chemistry that we can keep a body alive longer, or not maybe alive, but functioning longer than ever before. And it's just changed the course of our natural system. But if I'm going to be those people, I want to be at their bedside. The Twilight Brigade is a 20-hour program that we just finished a training in Denver, that I took what I've learned from studying thousands of people who've had near-death experiences and combined it into a 20-hour training. We're all inevitably going to be hospice volunteers. So when I wrote this new book along with Catherine, I wrote it, and the point, it says, ask yourself this question: what's the number one cause of death in America and most other countries? People say, what do you mean most other countries? Well, I've only been in 93 countries, so I can say most other countries. Mm-hmm. What is the number one cause of death? And then you just turn the page and it says birth.
Isn't that
That's all it says. Then you turn to the next page and it says, remember, if you're breathing, you're leaving. And if you just took a breath, this book is for you. Because people have to start exploring their life and looking at the value in their life and really appreciating that it is an opportunity. You know, and they say life is hell and you can't wait, you're sent here to be punished, and then you have karma that you have to keep coming here over and over again till you get it right. I have no idea where all that stuff comes from. None of it's true.
Oh, okay.
None of that is true. And so what you do is, some people come because they're doing a good job. But that's an opportunity that is available to them for doing such a good job.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I decided to create the Twilight Brigade because we have to move past this fear-based reality, appreciate that this is a rare opportunity, and look forward to going home.
I like that. Dannion, you just mentioned that if you're breathing, you're leaving. And one of the questions in the chat was specifically about breathing. He would like to know if we actually breathe when we're out there.
No. We pulse.
Yeah.
Why it's so important to pay attention to your heartbeat? When you lift out of your body, you quit breathing. You pulse, just like your heart does. As your heart beats, you pulse. You know, there is a pulse, and it speeds up. The frequency of the pulse stays constant, but, I mean, the rate of the pulse stays constant, but the frequency changes. It's like you change in pitch and tone. Mm-hmm. Everything operates in frequencies and harmonics. On this side of the veil, if you have two completely different sounds, and you keep playing them both, they will soon harmonize. Well, divinity works a lot like that. You change in density and harmonics or frequency, and then you begin to associate and harmonize with the place where you are. But people have to realize the biggest thing that you understand is you are a part of it, and it is a part of you. But no, you don't breathe.
Okay. That what you're saying just really, really, really rings true for me in my personal experiences, the lack of breathing and what you describe as the pulse. In fact, I remember one time waking up in a hospital bed, and I was kind of mad that they brought me to and woke me up, and I'm like, stop interrupting me. I'm watching a movie.
Well, like, that makes sense.
The nurse was like, oh, yeah, really? Can you tell me all about it? And like 2 minutes later, somebody came in and shot me up with more drugs. So the movie was just like, or I referred to it as the movie back then. I was a teenager. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but wow, that's very interesting to hear somebody else actually say these things. Let me ask you this, though, another question in the chat. They would like to know what the passage between life and death looks like.
You mean the tunnel?
Okay, sounds good.
Well, most people, I mean, it comes in many fashions. There's always something that represents a divide. Mine was a tunnel, and the tunnel was moving whether I was moving or not. And then I began to synchronize or harmonize with the tunnel, and I started moving down it. Mm-hmm. And then I could see the so-called light at the end of the tunnel. But there's a boundary or a border. Some people cross a meadow, there's a bridge, there's a stream. There is something that symbolizes the fact that you've crossed from one dimension into another dimension. But you got to remember, it's loving and wonderful. I mean, it's joyous. You take such joy in the fact that you're finally get to go back home. And when you lift out of your body, we all keep thinking, because we're so I, me driven. Mm-hmm. We all keep thinking that it's the same person that was in that body that is a creation of the social, psychological opinions of everybody around you. Mm. You know, you're not who you really are. You're a compilation of either agreeing with or arguing with what people think you are, and that's what becomes you as a social, psychological creature. But once you're out of that, once you lift out of your body, that stuff passes away, and you become the divine spiritual observer that you have always been. Another thing you'll realize is how much of your magnificence you had blocked out in order to achieve the goals that you were sent by the divine and that you chose to come to achieve.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm assuming your the first time you died, that was kind of a shocker or a paradigm bender, so to speak. What was it? Oh,
it was definitely a shocker.
Okay. Okay, but you did state previously you probably would have never believed any of that. You kind of thought you had all the answers, like, you know, most of the rest of us, and that was just...
Well, I just figured I was going to hell, and then, you know, after that it didn't matter.
Okay. Well, did you go to hell?
No. I've been over there 3 times, and the 3 things I've learned is that, well, if I didn't go to hell, nobody's going. And because if anyone deserved to go, it would have been me. But the thing that's most important is if you're not going to heaven and you're not going to die, then what creates value and purpose? Everything is so fear-driven on this side of the veil. You know, it's fear-driven. And when you institute fear, you slow down your breath. What divinity is represented on this side of the veil by is your breathing. Mm-hmm. And if people pay attention to the breathing, they breathe so shallow that, and when you get frightened, you breathe even more shallow or you stop breathing at all. So when you start to think about it from that point of view, we have to reduce the fear. Yeah. Everybody's afraid of when or if they're going to die, like the suicide bomber, and then what's going to happen once they get there, and then those become controlling psychologies, as opposed to living this life in joy and happiness, being supportive, and having the opportunity to be everything that you would think that the divine would be. I always tell this joke that what happens if you were in heaven and God came up and put his arm around you and says, "Hi, Christie, how would you like to be me for a couple of days?" You say, "Wow, God, what a great idea. I get to be you." "Yeah, you get to be me," like Bruce Almighty. "Yeah, you get to be me." And you say, "Well," and then, "God, that would be great." And God says, "Well, what do you think I am?" "Well, God, you're the most loving, you're the most trusting, you're the most caring, most protective, most divine thing that there exists." And he said, would you like to be that for a few days? And you say yes. And the next thing that happens is that you're born. And all of a sudden you're in a world where you can be caring, protective, compassionate, loving. You can produce children. You can be everything that you think that God is. You're living in the place and an environment that you're capable of being all the things you say and believe God to be or hope God to be. And then you realize that that's the real lesson. Mm-hmm. How compassionate, how loving, how caring, how supportive, how protective can I be?
Yeah.
And then people, when you look at it from that point, you really get an idea of part of what the major mission is. Mm-hmm. So when someone says, what do you think that divine, what do you think that the divine is? What do you think that God is? And when you start to use those words, There is no word that you can think that about God that you don't have the capability of doing and achieving in your life today. So you're practicing to be a God.
Yeah, I can feel that. Dannion, in regards to hell, I'm just wondering what could be more hellish than this existence. You know, we go from this safe place to not so safe place, you know, or after we take our first couple breaths, we're getting like slapped, we're getting circumcised, we're getting drugged, we're being separated from our mom, and then, you know, with all of the institutionalization that you mentioned in the last segment, and of course forgetting who we are and everybody wandering around like, what's my purpose, what are we doing here? I mean, really, what could be more hellish than that?
Well, it's to develop belief systems. They call it faith or hope in religious, but it's belief systems. Everything is about love. Then what do you believe about your love? Because what we always do, and this is the biggest crisis we have, we're always coming up with things to show and express our love. Then we give our love or express our love, and we wait for something or someone to give it back before we ever put a value on it. This is the toughest thing. Once I came back, it was very easy for me to reform myself. I don't ever get really very angry now because it serves no great purpose. And what I see is, if you have a belief system, then when you believe something about your love, and it's never what you do, it's only why you're doing it, and you look at why you're doing it, you've set up a belief system so that if someone fails you to return this love to you based on the premise you've applied to it, then you can choose what to do about it. But most of us end up just believing what everybody else says about our love, or the pain or punishment or suffering that comes with being rejected or someone abusing that concept of love, until we never get a chance to truly be ourselves. Yeah. Well, the veteran, my wife tells me all the time that I have an intimacy problem because the only people I really like are those who are dying, and the only reason I like them is I don't have to like them very long.
I like that. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. So, you know, she's quite funny.
She is beautiful. Now, let me ask you this, Dannion. Do you feel that you had to die to find your purpose in this life?
Well, I can see that I would have been a completely different person without this knowledge, and I would have been far more destructive than I am. But I believe that we all decide. We set boundaries and borders and things that we set to achieve. And somewhere I made this pact. And because it happened to me, and, you know, look at the Saved by the Light became a cult classic. I mean, it's all over the world, and it sold millions and millions and millions of books. And I've just become like a standard bearer for people's ability to talk about something that truly revolutionizes their spiritual identity. We need to look at our spiritual identity equal to or more than our physical identity. But if you keep people afraid and you keep war and terrorism and threats of violence...
to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifiland brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifiland. There's nothing else like Modifiland. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifiland banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Our special guest tonight, Dannion Brinkley. 10 Things to Know Before You Go is the title of his latest book. You can get some updates on his website. There's a pre-order form as well. That's at Dannion.com, DANNION.com. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call at 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. And Dannion, we were talking during the break, and let me ask you, what do you think of the term or Bible verse or the quote, I die daily? What does that mean to you?
Well, but you start over every day. You know, at the end of each day, we all have a new opportunity to begin again, you know, and what we were talking earlier about the credit state that we put ourselves in. The United States has given away its entire industrial base so we could buy cheap stuff on credit. And we took our homes, which they crave a great value, that it first became an asset. Now with second mortgages and lines of credit, we've taken our only true asset, which is usually our home, and now indebted us, and then they deflate the bubble. They make it worth less so that all of a sudden you're a prisoner to devices that were created for us. I mean, this whole idea of the housing bubble, now it's the stock market bubble. It's the same thing that happened in 1898 and then again in 1929. So what we just saw happen in 2008, it's going to happen again. Look at the stock market. What in the world is happening in the United States that would cause the stock market to be at this level of activity?
Yeah.
Because you're buying up assets that were deflated. And so the only thing that we have to look forward to is hyperinflation. They say the collapse of the dollar or the end of the petrodollar, which is what John Kerry is over there arguing with the Saudi Arabians about, because the Saudi Arabians are running out of oil. OPEC's losing it, and now Russia's the largest exporter of natural gas. So we put ourselves in a place that if we don't really wake up and we don't realize that where we are in fractal banking and what we've allowed to believe in our governments and institutions and religions, because none of it is true. It's just a delusion. So we die every day, but we wake up to a new world and a new possibility. You know, and I'm glad that Kat and I never quite put ourselves in that situation. But, you know, my heart goes out to people who let the system control and manipulate them. Yeah. Look at healthcare. Healthcare is just the beginning of total insanity. You know, how do you...
That's the beginning? I thought it was one of the nails in the coffin.
Well, it's the beginning of it. You know, I always said this, and I said this from 1975, that the battle for the souls of humankind would be fought in healthcare. And I designed the Twilight Brigade in such a way because I had to build a standardized model that would be accepted. You can get up from the dead and you can talk all that stuff, but you have to do something about it. So I spent 28 years in the VA, in the Veterans Administration, as a hospice volunteer. And then 17 years ago, after 10 years, almost 11 years of studying the system, I created the Twilight Brigade. And now it's helping to implement the standard end-of-life care model. Yeah. So you create a certain image of yourself, so that when this battle came, and I knew that fateful day would come, and when it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled it as a tax, which constitutionally is illegal. I mean, I believe in national health care. I believe in a nation as great as this one that everybody should be able to go and get affordable health care. But the system that we have in front of us now, it was destined to fail.
Definitely.
I mean, it was destined to fail because you had to get young people to pay for insurance at a certain rate so that older, sick people and people with pre-existing conditions could pay for and to be taken care of. And first, that's not going to happen unless you put the tax rate. I think our highest tax rate is now 38%. But unless you put the tax rate around 60% against everything you earn, it'll never work.
Wow. Well, speaking of belief systems, Dannion, how can we, say when we cross over, do you believe that we can be trapped by our belief systems over there as well?
Well, not quite over there. There is a place between here and down the tunnel. Mm-hmm. Because when in the third near-death experience, when I lifted out of my body, the first two times I floated above, and I call that the blue-gray place. The third time, I was standing at the foot of the bed. Mm-hmm. I was watching them doing the brain surgery, and I realized that this place I'd call the blue-gray place was a place of its own, and then people were trapped there. I mean, they were trapped there, and they were trapped there because of the belief systems that they had created based on the value of their love. I mean, based on the fact, and there were a lot of people who were drug addicts and alcoholics who were trapped that could take the smell of the sensation, that's why they call it spirits, and they could migrate back into this level. And so, and they were trapped themselves. No one is ever really trapped. You have free will the whole time. Until you go back on the other side, and then it's a different system of rules. But belief systems cause people to get trapped. And this is why I decided to write 10 Things to Know. And I think 3 of the really important things that people should know is this. What do you appreciate about yourself? And you stop and you make a list. What do you admire about yourself? And what about yourself is inspiring? And then again, what do you think people appreciate about you? And what do you hope that people admire about you? And then what do you hope that you're doing to inspire others? And when you write those things down every day, you begin to harmonize with that level of consciousness. Appreciate, admire, inspire, and aspire. I live my life appreciating things and hoping that I'm being appreciated. Admiring things and hoping that my actions become admired. And inspired by actions and what I see people do, and hope that what I do, people see something about it that inspires them. That's why I built the Twilight Brigade, because war is the stupidest thing in the world. I know that from being a Marine. And the next thing is that so many veterans felt deserted and abandoned. So when I came back from the third near-death experience, I created the Twilight Brigade to create where I have a band of disciplined troopers on this side, but I also have a group on the other side. So the Twilight Brigade exists across that veil to help people who trap themselves to get across.
So somebody's asking on the chat, what exactly is the blue-gray place, and where do souls get trapped by their belief system in the process of crossing over?
In the blue-gray place. No one has to go down the tunnel.
Okay.
No one has to cross the bridge. No one makes anybody do anything. Because part of the process of coming here is free will. And if you have that free will, then you can decide. And some people get really caught up in this place. But when you first lift out of your body, that's the blue-gray place. Okay? And so a lot of people stay too attached. There are a lot of people who are sociopaths and bullies and people who sincerely want to stay here as long as they can because they're comfortable with what they're going through. And then there are people like alcoholism and drug addiction that you know that you understand that alternative mindset and you want to still function in it and operate in it. And so people don't have to let go. But I try to create a way through the Twilight Brigade, but with people with a lot of those same problems, their light is just a little brighter. Their frequency is just a little more refined, and those, as they pass through the blue-gray place, that people sense that, and then they decide to let go and take the journey home. Nobody makes you do anything. You know, nobody. And then those are choices that comes with the fact that you were born, and until you get back through the tunnel and meet your whatever being of light. You know, you hear so many people say they're met by a being of light, and they call it Jesus and Buddha and Allah, Muhammad and God. That being on the other side that you meet at first is you.
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifiland brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifiland. There's nothing else like Modifiland. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifiland banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
All right. Welcome back. Top of the second hour here tonight. Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Thank you all for joining us here tonight with Dannion Brinkley. He is the author of 3 books currently, Saved by the Light, At Peace in the Light, and Secrets of the Light, that he co-authored with his beautiful wife, Catherine Peters Brinkley. He is also the co-founder of the Twilight Brigade, which they operate in 22 different states, so you can check out the website and see where you can volunteer and become a part of that as well. That is the twilightbrigade.com. 10 Things to Know Before You Go is the title of his next book he's working on right now, and he's shared a few of those things with us thus far. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to give us a call at 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. And if you'd like to join us on the text chat, that's over at souljourneysradio.com. And Dannion, you were just sharing with us right before we went to break. Several people have asked, did you have an angel? Was there an angel to save you? Who is the angel that came to take your soul? And you started to answer that when we got cut off, so please continue.
Well, a lot of people have to have, because they're so unsteady. No one passes alone. I mean, there's always someone who will come to get you or know that it's going to be safe. Because a lot of times people at the bedside, you see them looking at people or talking to someone, and doctors always relate that to hallucinations. Yes, they're seeing someone. They're seeing someone come to get them. And like I said, in my mother had radons and lupus, and she was struggling. She was like 54 years old, and she called me in the room and she says, "Don't let them hurt me anymore, and it's time for me to go." And I said, "Well, okay, Mom." And she said, "Marion has come." I turn around and I look. She's looking over my left shoulder, and I turn around and I could see this silhouetted image. I had never seen Marion, but when my mother was 16 years old, she had a 14-year-old sister. and they were going to a basketball game, and the basketball team sat in the front. My mother was a basketball player, and the rest of the people going sat in the back. And my mother's sister, Marion, was sitting with them, and Mother, because of, when you're 16, you don't want a younger sister around, told her to go sit in the back. Marion went to the back of the bus, and the emergency door was on the side. They hit a bump. Marion hit the emergency door. It slung open and threw her under the bus, and she was killed when the back tires ran over her. So I always thought, when I saw, she said Marion was here, and don't let them hurt me anymore. Marion has come, and it's time to go. Well, I saw this silhouetted being. And I thought that, and this was in 1984, some 9 years after this event, my first lightning strike, and 5 years before it happened to me again. But if there was a God in heaven, and there was someone who could come that would let my mother know it was safe to let go, and that the last thing she said was take care of your father, that it was safe to let her go, there could be nobody from heaven that could have greater had come for my mom, because she always was felt guilty about that could come. Now, I have seen people talking to their sisters who have passed, their parents, their grandparents. I've seen beings in the room. I've seen people get up out of their bodies. I mean, I've been doing this for 36 years, so I've not anything I have not seen. So when a person is really, really stressing, someone will be there. I mean, someone will come. And it's usually someone you know who you feel safe with, a grandparent, a parent, a brother, a friend. I've heard every kind of description and every kind of name. But, no one goes alone and if they are that frightened of the transition.
You said you actually met yourself in your transition.
Well, when you get to the end of the tunnel, everybody says they're met by a being of light, or Jesus came, or an angel came. And, you hear this stuff. But the first time, I didn't know who the being was. And the being stayed with me until I got to what I call the crystal cities. It was there to give me a sense of comfort. That sense of comfort. And that place that you need to have the security of where you were. But I was comfortable. But the next 2 times I went, when I was going into open heart surgery, then I started thinking about, well, what if I have another one of these? And so I'm obsessive compulsive, dead or alive. And so I study things and pay attention. And so the next time when I got to the end of the tunnel, the next time I saw the being of light, I recognized this being. None of us ever leave heaven, Christie. The whole concept of thinking that you've left heaven and you're here on this earth, that's ludicrous. Think of this. Let's say there were 320 million people living in the United States. We know of 306 million, and then 12 million so-called not illegals. Now, let's say there were 320 million. And every human being in the United States is made up of atoms, molecules, and cells. If you take all the empty space out of every atom in every body of everyone who lives in the United States, that's 94.6% empty space. If you take all the empty space out of every molecule in every body of every person living in the United States, that's 98%. If you take all the empty space out of every cell of every body in the United States, that's about 97.8%. So if you take all the empty space out of every atom and every molecule in every cell in every body in the United States, the entire population of the United States would fit in a matchbox. So that's science. So who are you and where are you really?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, once you look at that fact, who are you and where are you? Okay, now since CERN has come into creation, this electron bombardment deal in Switzerland, and they've discovered the Higgs boson particle, then they have begun to identify this thing called dark matter, that the entire universe is suspended in this there's no name for it. It's even smaller than a tachyon, but that it permeates everything. So the whole thoughts of when you've heard that we're all one, and that was been mythology for years, that is now a scientific proven fact based on the Higgs boson particle being discovered in CERN last year. You can no longer say that you're not connected to everyone else because it can be scientifically proven that you are. But we still live in those same 2,000-year-old mindsets. You know, we've become so ingrained with our belief systems that, and controlled by those belief systems, that we don't really apply practical quantum physics to our everyday life.
Yeah.
Unless you buy DVDs.
So how can we be trapped by these belief systems or maybe carry them over to that in-between phase? For example, we were talking during the break how some people say they see angels, or some people see demons, or people see other, deities of their religion. Doesn't that kind of take away from what really is when we want to trap ourselves in a box, whether it be religion or any other institution?
Yeah, but everybody has their own way in everything. About 3% of all near-death experiences, like Howard Storm, people went to hell. And they describe hell, and they say they went to hell. And I said, well, what description of hell are you describing?
Yeah.
You went to a lake of fire? Okay, look at what it says in the Bible. Well, when you come back from this kind of experience, a person like I am, I will study it. I'm like a Bible scholar. And I didn't want to be, but I just had to understand how everybody got so crazy. So when you start to think about all of that, hell, when did hell become a dominant part of our reality? Well, you start looking out throughout history. It's mentioned 16 times in the Bible, 8 times by Jesus. Of those 8 times, 6 times he was talking about a trash dump outside of Gethsemane where they threw all the people that were criminals. They would execute them and throw their bodies to be burned, and that became the lake of fire. In the Revelation of John. And then about around 1320 or 30, I think it was Clement II, Pope Clement II. He read Dante's Inferno. And then from the middle 1300s till today, hell is Dante's Inferno's description. The ripping of the flesh, eternal burning, persecution. And, anybody who thinks you can rip your flesh in the spiritual world, that's a crazy person.
Well, we got a lot of crazy people here,
Yeah, but, it's okay. I don't argue with people's belief system.
Yeah.
Any way you find a way to touch divinity, but when each case is individual, and about 3%, and I can listen to a person tell the story, and I can argue and resign myself to probably 2.5%, and there's 0.5% that I can't say, and most of those are children. Most of those are children who talk about angels and seeing winged beings and Jesus or heavenly. And those are like really children, books written by Melvin Morris. They're pretty phenomenal. But most of those, and there has to be a pattern that's overlaid from our identity that somehow overlays into a child that gives them that sense of safety and security. And I trust the divine so much, Chrissy.
Mm-hmm.
I trust the divine so much that when a child came back, that if they had a story like that, they sensed the love, they sensed the security, they sensed the presence, they sensed the divine eternal love, and then they have these things that they identify with. I think the child would have a less chance of being put in a mental institution and drugged for the next 50 years if the divine did not create that kind of story. But I've been around. I've talked to, I've been at this a really long, long time. I was at the first days. I always laugh and make a joke. I can remember when nobody was had a near-death experience, and now everybody's had one.
Yeah.
And so there's
you're on the front lines, letting people know that all of a sudden it's okay to talk about it, whereas before, as people would be institutionalized, right? Oh, well,
yeah.
That's just hallucination. Take this little drug and wear this little, white jacket.
No, but you're right, and that became my role. I was not going to have it.
Yeah.
People, because if I didn't have Raymond to talk to in those early days, I mean, there was nowhere I could find any information, and I had plenty of spare time because I couldn't walk. And so I had plenty of spare time, and I could never find anywhere. And when I met Raymond was a lifesaver. I mean, he asked the right questions, and he could answer my questions, not as well as I needed them, but we spent a lot of years together looking at it and observing and watching what people were going through, the after effects. So when you start to look at that, how it changes people's lives, I always ask people, what did you do for the next 6 months? Yeah. I became an authority.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Downtime will do that to you.
I had to understand what the deal was and how it worked.
Let me ask you this. Somebody said in the chat that they believe that when beings experience quote-unquote hell during transition, that it's actually the shadow self that was not dealt with during this incarnation.
I can accept that. That's a blue-gray place where you go, and we all spend this thing about you got to be saved, and if you're saved, you're going to go to heaven. I don't know who really created that, but that means it's not a fair and just universe, and no one is ever going to get me to believe it's not a fair and just universe.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No one's going to ever, and if you can get people to do certain things at the end of their life, that will never eliminate the panoramic life review.
Okay, now this question right here might be the most important one for people who are afraid of death. Came up in the chat a couple times. Dannion, can you experience orgasm in the afterlife?
100%. The entire afterlife
is an orgasm, isn't it?
It's like that. It's sensual. I mean, I had to quit using that word because the connotations that people place upon the term sensual. But when you enter that place of divine love, it is a sensual feeling.
Yeah.
It's not anything that words can describe. It's a presence. And when you can think of dwelling in the innermost sanctums of the divine love that comes from our source, it's orgasmatic.
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifiland brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifiland. There's nothing else like Modifiland. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifiland banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes. I like very much.
Radio.
They're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
All right, welcome back, and thanks again for joining us here tonight with Dannion Brinkley here on SoulJourneysRadio.com. You can join us there if you'd like to join our happy little soul family in the text chat. And any questions or comments, the number is 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. 10 things to know before you go. Dannion Brinkley's website is Dannion.com. That's DANNION.com. Or you can go to the Twilight Brigade.com and find out what he's doing there and maybe even volunteer or sign up for training. But we do have a caller on the line here. So our friend Casey, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Christy, how you doing, dear?
Great, thank you. What do you got for us?
Nice to meet Mr. Brinkley. Basically what I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to thank you. Indirectly, I learned about you about 20 years ago on that show, Unsolved Mysteries. And at the time, I was going through pretty tough, we'll just call it an addiction. And, kind of beating myself up and being a recovering Catholic and stuff like that. And what I wanted to say to you, I wanted to thank you from learning from your experience, watching that story that night of your first experience, being electrocuted and thrown from the room and all that stuff. It really kind of shook me to the core. And then when I eventually got sober, I never forgot that story and how it changed you. And, so as I got, a little older and stuff, I started looking into your story and what you do to help people with Twilight Brigade and everything like that. And I just essentially wanted to say thank you because you opened my eyes to something that wasn't religious-based programming, and it definitely helped me grow. And I can't thank you enough. And I just, thank you, and I love you, and I really appreciate you.
Casey, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I set out to. No one's perfect, and I was by far and still am that way, but I needed people to have a chance. I am not, although I do engage and understand, look at religions, recovering Catholics, I never could figure that stuff out. And I never could figure it out, and the indoctrination that comes with it. And I finally got a grip on Catholicism when I heard about Pope Leo X selling indulgences. You could buy your way into heaven. Now, I started to like Catholicism then, but I just started out just being me, and I appreciate what you're saying because every one of those opportunities, like the movie Saved by the Light's been seen in 60 countries by 100 million people, and it's still playing all over the world now. But each of those things that came along, it was my attempt to defend the people who had a story to tell. And you can't keep it inside of you. And as you keep it inside of you, you see such hypocrisy. And you can't tell it because you'll lose your if you're church-based or community-based or scientifically based, you lose your support system in the course of telling something that was true. And I just needed people to be able to thank you because, see, that makes me feel appreciated. But I needed people to have someone who would stand up for them, someone that knows that you don't have to be perfect. Like, I get a lot of letters from people in prison, I mean, who see that I was such a prick, that they see that there's a chance for them, and they're going to come out, and they're going to go straight, and they're going to change their lives. And I'm talking thousands of these, not dozens, but thousands. And I just appreciate it, because I've always been a tough guy, and people can do whatever they say, and, you know, it doesn't really matter to me. And I can tell you a quick story. In the early years, Raymond's talking among his peers, and Raymond's brilliant. PhD in philosophy, a medical doctor, and a forensic psychiatrist. That is no dummy.
Yeah.
I used to kid Raymond, because I said, Raymond, all your friends have been dead 3,000 years. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Those are all his friends. And I said, so we were talking to a group of doctors, and this cardiologist said, he said, you know, Dr. Moody, you should be ashamed of yourself. We are scientists. And if you can't create a scientific protocol of replication and you talk about this stuff, then there is no reason for anyone to believe you. And there's no reason to believe anyone who has this experience. It's oxygen, brain deprivation, temporal lobe seizures, frontal lobe seizures, anaphylactic shock, all those things that I do think people experience. But my near-death experience, and so the guy was winning, and we had about 400 people in the audience. And I said, Rain Man, I always called him the Rain Man. I said, Rain Man, let me talk to this guy. So I walked down off the stage, and I got right over him, and I said, let me ask you something. If I can tell you something that you will admit to believing, that you cannot create a double-blind study, that you cannot recreate a research paradigm protocol, and replicate it under a scientific method, and you would believe it and you would state it was true, what would you be willing to bet? He said, well, I'd be willing to bet just about anything, because he's so, you know, arrogant. And I said, and they had this little young 16-year-old girl sitting to him. I said, who is this? Is this your daughter? He said, yes. I said, you want to bet her life? I said, because I can get her and you. And there is nothing you can do. You can talk all you want. I said, so if you really believe what you're saying, then let's bet her life on it, and then let's see if I'm right or wrong. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, now let me tell you why. Show me a handful of love. Show me a research paradigm protocol that replicates itself in the scientific method based on the rules you were placing on a near-death experience. And yet the reason you wouldn't do that is because you loved her. And we won the audience. But the little 16-year-old girl elbowed him in the ribs and said, Dan, I told you when you didn't buy me that car yesterday that you didn't love me. And there becomes everybody laughed at him, and he turned red. And there became the whole point of I had to defend people's rights. I had to defend their rights. You know, somebody had to come up and be tough and not let someone browbeat them. When everybody has a story, and that story becomes important to them, and it becomes a whole new life-changing experience. So, Casey, I thank you. I mean, if you were here, I'd give you the biggest hug that you've had in years, but I thank you for that, and I thank you for taking the time to call in and to say that. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. We're brothers for life, sir. I appreciate it.
Let's keep that light lit.
Amen.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Casey. Thanks for calling in to share that.
No problem. Thank you, dear. Love you.
All right. Love you,
I love you too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night. Aw, that's
wow,
so
that was
beautiful.
Cool.
Isn't that what you said? The 3 things that you mentioned, 3 of the 10 things that we should know
appreciate,
before
admire,
we go.
and inspire.
Yep, there
and
you
then,
go.
And then aspire. So I was appreciated, I was admired, I was inspiring, and I aspire to be and keep doing and be even better. I just needed that. That was great. Thank you.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yep. So what do you appreciate, what do you admire, and what inspires you?
Yeah. Well, so, okay, let's kind of, I'm looking at the clock here, and I can't believe how fast this is going. But, okay, so some of the things we need to go or know before we go, I guess, do we actually have to discover or concretely understand our purpose before that? Or maybe we discover it during that time of transition? Or is that one of the things we need to know?
Very easy. How many opportunities in a day do you get to be God? What you do is you think about what God does. What do you think God is? Who do you think God is to you? And tell me something that you cannot do that you think God is loving, compassionate, protective, caring. All those things are the possibilities of what we have as an option in our lives. And if you are compassionate, if you're caring, if you're supportive, if you pat somebody on the back, you help them cross the street, you open the door, you show people that you appreciate them and wherever they're going through. And that you pat somebody, say it's going to be okay. You create that support. You're doing your job. Over there, when you have your life review, Chrissy, when you have your life review, it's not about any great things. It's not that I was, Dannion, famous, international best-selling author, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about that crap over there. They care about how many times you smiled at somebody. And if you helped them, and if you supported, and you cared, and gave that moment where a person could take a break, sit down, like for me, I create a way that when a person's in transition, the person that's with them, they're passing a little bit at the same time themselves. And so I'll go and sit at the bedside, and they'll say, well, what do you think I should do? I said, well, you need to go drink some liquor. Or you need to go get your hair fixed. Or maybe you need to just go sleep a couple of hours. And I have people that I call every day who are losing people. Like we just went through it in the family of the grandfather of our kids, of Kat's kids. And they were going through everybody was having a tough time. And so his wife, Sharon, I would call her twice a week and just let her talk and check on her. And so I have people that I call every day to see how they're doing, because the only time anybody ever calls is to ask how he's doing or how she's doing. Never ask how they're doing.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I want to know how you're doing, and then to give people a break. You can trust me, you're a Twilight Brigader. We don't take anything. We don't want your furniture or your jewelry. We don't want anything to do with that. We don't need any of that.
Yeah.
And so
just be that safe place for someone that, sometimes
to get a
they're kind
break.
of forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's got to care about them. Nobody cares how you're doing. They care about how the person that they're losing is doing.
Yeah.
And so I find great solace in that in myself, that when they come back and they slept a couple of hours, they fixed their hair, they maybe went to a movie, they did something that was not the routine of what was happening in that person's life. And I think that I find great reward, and if I'm going to be everybody I'm ever going to encounter, and I'm going to feel the direct results of my interaction, I look so forward once again to be seeing me through the eyes of the people that I bring comfort and solace to, that they're going to look up and I'm going to see them looking into the eyes and the face of God, and that comes through me.
You're going to know that you lived your purpose by putting a smile on their face.
That's exactly it. That they found safety and they found security and they found a sense of presence and a sense of value. Everybody needs to know that their life meant something. Yeah. And everybody needs to know that they need closure. So the Twilight Brigade is trained to create ways that closure comes into play. Think of this. You never think about this, but you ask a person who's lying in a bed in a lot of pain, what's your favorite song and why? And then all of a sudden, they go from that bed to the happiest moments they ever had. And then you say why, and it was their first date or first time they kissed or when they got off the airplane. They got off the boat or airplane and made it home after a war, their first dance, their first date. I mean, you see those things that make a difference, and they find that sense of closure.
Yeah, I like that. Dannion, let me ask you this one. We're going into a break here in just a moment, but okay, if we're all eternal and there is no such thing as death as we'd like to understand it.
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifiland brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifiland. There's nothing else like Modifiland. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifiland banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Welcome back. Last segment here with Dannion Brinkley on SoulJourneysRadio.com. I guess, what do they say? All good things must come to an end. I hope that's not true. Maybe that's just part of our belief system at this time. But it is the last segment here and still lots more to talk about. But, getting back to what I asked you before break, Dannion. If we have eternal life and there is no such thing as death, then why are we here? What is this game called life?
We practice. We get a chance to practice to be everything that we hope divinity is. All of us are on a pathway. It is a rare privilege to take on this water bag. Remember, you're just a big bag of water. And to take this on and to look at how many dimensions of reality that you're functioning in, and to feel the sense of separation from the eternal. You're really not separate, but you get to think that you are.
Yeah.
Okay, you get to think that you're I, and a me. And I always, in the book, I write about the mental, physical being, or the human being, what it thinks, and then as it acts as a human. And it's always about gratification or preservation. So when you're separate from the divine, then it's either you're gratifying yourself or you're trying to protect yourself. In today's climate, it's 75% of the time you're trying to preserve yourself, preservation. And when you look at that, you get a chance to see that these are ways to see and express who you are. But our entire life is about relationships with your pets, with your friends, with your family, with everybody that you know at work, everybody you meet on the subway, people you meet on the bus, people you meet in the park. It's all about relationships and how you interact in that relationship as a divine expression of who you are. Like in the South, everybody says hello, and in the North, nobody does. And yet,
well, in Brooklyn, they scream, hey, screw your mama, and that's like how they say good morning. It's really sweet.
Well, but, I find New Yorkers to be absolutely delightful people.
They're cute.
I do, though. Just delightful, and just as caring, and just as courteous, and I guess I just meet all the right people or the wrong people considering that. Yeah. But our purpose in life is that each day is an expression of our own divine creativity. To be caring and to be supportive and to appreciate what people are going through. You know, when you learn this by being at the bedside, but what's more important, the most important thing, everybody, is to this, to find a call to service. I get up in the morning for two reasons. I got to make a living, and I have to go about through what I'm doing. But because I got up today, a veteran won't die alone. Mm-hmm. And with those two places, I find a harmony and a balance. You know, and we live in an electrical universe. We have protons, electrons, and neutrons. And what is so amazing is the neutral is what we call the ground. And once you find, then the Bible says, seek ye harmony and balance. Once you find a ground, then reality begins to unfold. You see things. And when we wrote Secrets of the Light, we created 7 truths. Things that you can take and match your life by. When you're in a problem or in trouble, you can go, I always use 5. You know, I choose to be here at this time and in this place because this is the moment I can make the greatest difference. Yeah. And when you give someone a gift, you call it a present. And what we have now is being present, because now is all there is. Yeah, our present
is our presence. Our presence is now.
Being present. Then I'm the difference. I came here because I can make a difference. I got myself into all this BS because I thought I could figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing about being a great, powerful, and mighty, powerful spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose, the first thing you're going to think is there's nothing you can get into that you can't figure out a way to get out of it. I keep trying to get up from the dead, and I've been pretty successful at it, but when people want to know who caused your problem, you caused your problem. And it's up to you to figure out how to get out of it.
So it's kind of practice. Like what can you, or could you give us some advice if we get caught up in the game or the illusion, so to speak, and forget our purpose or why we're here? How can we, go back to our present state of mind and our purpose rather than focusing on the pain of the illusion of separation?
Clean out your closet.
All right. So heal thyself first.
Yeah, you go clean out your closet and see what you haven't used, and then get yourself to a women's shelter or a Salvation Army. Not put it in a bin, but go take it yourself and watch somebody put on something you haven't worn in years or will never wear, and go put it on. Mm-hmm. And watch their eyes light up for something that means nothing to you, and you were going to throw it in the trash. Go do that. And all of a sudden you see that a little act of you getting rid of junk becomes the greatest possession and gift a person has. And in that moment, you've changed their life, and they've changed your life. Clean out your garage. Go find something that is of no value to you that you call a possession, and put it in the hands of someone who can see it as a possession, that now that makes a difference in their life. And as winter sets in, we all have all that kind of crap that we hope one day will fit in again, but we know we never will. Well, go find somebody that it will fit in.
Yeah, that really helps people. That helps me put things into perspective. But, Dannion, I'm looking at the clock, and we only have about, 3.5 minutes left or so. So I do want to mention, besides being an author and speaker and the co-founder of the Twilight Brigade and everything else you have going on, and, of course, your new book, 10 Things to Know Before You Go, which you can find at his website, Dannion.com. You also do personal readings for people. Can you tell us about that and how you would, say, get together with somebody in Cambodia?
Well, it's very easy. I started this because I would see so many people on the tour out on the road. I see tens of thousands of people every year. Mm-hmm. And I would pick up things about people because I listen to the tone in your voice. Mm-hmm. I very rarely hear the words, and I pay attention to the verb conjugation. And how you conjugate the verb tells me action and intent, and I guess they call it the Akashic Record. Okay. I can access that. And so what I ask people to do is have 7 questions and to write them down. Because once you go and commit it from out of your head into black and white on this earth, then it begins to the universe begins to take action, so it's easier to answer those questions and directions. And they can just come to the website and go to the website, and I think it's Dannion at Dannion Admin. It's all on Dannion.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then Catherine creates the back and forth, and whatever is the least expensive and the most productive way to achieve the goal, we're capable of doing it. And, you know, I have to thank Catherine for that, because I never would have thought about it, because I've become so empathic through the years, because I don't believe half the stuff that everybody, you know, that the world is preaching.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
And I've become to where it's hard to lie to me or to fool me.
Mm-hmm.
And I see things about people that helps them. You know, and if you have specific questions, because the big thing about somebody who is psychic or whatever it is, they start telling you. Well, when they start telling you, it is based on their intention, not your intention. But if you've written your questions down and your intention is to get those answers, then it's from what you are seeking, not from what that person is trying to tell them. A lot of people just get amazed, Chrissy, at what they're hearing as opposed to getting the answers to their questions. And I would rather answer questions and give direction and sense things. And I'd have to say, based on the kind of comments that come in, that I'm pretty good at it.
I would say you are pretty darn good, Dannion. Okay, so if you would like a reading with Dannion Brinkley, you can go to his website. That's Dannion.com, DANNION.com. And to learn more about the Twilight Brigade and how you can get involved, go to thetwilightbrigade.com. Dannion, it's been so fun talking with you here tonight. I swear I could talk to you for we could do an 8-hour show. I'm not running out of questions.
Well, I enjoyed it, and Casey, I just so much appreciate that. That made my whole week.
Yeah, definitely.
And for people around the world, I thank you for listening to this show, and please tell other friends about this show so that each week Chrissy's audience grows bigger and larger. And I love each and every one of you with all my heart, and I wish for each of you the absolute best.
Thank you so much. We definitely wish the same for you, and I also would like to bring your attention. He does have a calendar of events on the website, so check his schedule as well. You'll be speaking, Westlake Village here on November 16th. And do you have any other events coming up you want to mention in our next 30 seconds?
I have no idea.
All right.
Kat does all of that. I don't want to know.
Okay.
I have to think about it, but it'll all come up on the calendar of events on Dannion.
It sure will. Dannion, thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom with us, and thank you all for joining us here tonight. Abundant blessings and love to you all. We will see you tomorrow night with Heather Rhodes of GardeningKnowHow.com here on Soul Journeys Radio.
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifiland brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifiland. There's nothing else like Modifiland. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifiland banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.
You're listening to the future of talk. American Freedom Radio. This is American Freedom Radio.